So I think what I'm going to do is really talk a little bit about my story. Because I think the fail hard, fail often is my story, now that I come to think about it. I'm the kind of guy that doesn't do things the easy way, if that makes sense. Nothing necessarily comes straight away to me, easily or naturally. It never has. The reason I figure out how to do things is by trying. And it's interesting because a lot of people think that I'm, putting myself out there and even being up on stage now doing this to build a business and create money and all the things that we have these expectations in our head. And the truth is, I couldn't do it unless I was doing it for you. I'm not an extrovert. I don't feel like I need to be putting myself out there. I don't. Every time I push myself that little bit further, just like I decided to do this morning by just speaking to you from my heart, it's not for anything for me. It's for you. Because if I can learn the lessons myself, I can share it with you. And it's interesting because all of us have some of that. Now, most of the people in this room are in what we call the advice professions. So accounting, financial advice, mortgage broking. But we have some different people here as well this time that are from unrelated, that you might not think this is advice. For example, where's Brett from Future Auto? There he is. So Brett's the operations manager for Future Auto, which is a franchise for automotive service. And really, when it comes down to it, what do? Advice. Theirs is a trust business, but that's really flipping things on its head. So I want to share with you a part of something interesting that I've learned, and it's really, really, really important that you get this. And I've kind of observed it through others. So one of the people that I've observed it through over time is Gideon, sitting down the back. Gideon, can you just stick your hand up for me? Richard Branson, Gary Vaynerchuk. Hands up if you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is. Okay, cool. So he's putting a lot of stuff out there at the moment. Seth Godin. The interesting thing I see from them is that they learn through iteration. I mean, we all learn through iteration, but they seem to be learning faster. How the hell did Seth Godin get so good at writing stuff that he can put out every day, sometimes only 2 paragraphs, but whatever it is, it connects to you and moves you? Who's a fan of Seth? Okay, good. It's always good to know that there's some context. How does he do that? And I look at what Gary Vaynerchuk's doing now, and he's putting out, almost multiple videos a day, and they're really raw. And I look at, what Gideon's done, where he's just got out and put himself out on YouTube. And I look at what I've done. What I want you to understand is this. There's a benefit to all of the things that we're going to be talking to you about, especially when it comes to putting yourself out there, beyond the reach, connections, conversion to clients, ROI in the commercial sense. And it's really important you get this, because I've only just really clarified this with such simplicity. When you put yourself out into the world, it changes you. It helps you distill your message. It helps you figure out your worth. It helps you figure out what you have to say. And it does it so much faster. So yeah, we're going to tell you all of these things and process and strategy and all of that. But here's the number one message that I have for you. Take the best that you've got right now and put it out into the world. Don't overthink it. Don't worry about, have I got it right? Do I have my core message yet? Do I need to, how's it going to fit together? What's the series going to be? What's the end in mind? Yeah, it's important to do all of those things. But what is even more important is to iterate in public. And you know what's even more important than iterating in public and having success? Iterating in public and screwing stuff up. Nothing helps you distill who you are. And if you are in a position of trust, your worth and your message in here is what translates out there. And the more that you do this, the faster you will iterate. So that's my key message to you. You can't screw it up. Because even if you screw it up, guess what? You haven't. And this is the thing about failure. And I think it's something we get distracted by. I mean, it's so easy to just overcomplicate, overthink, make excuses. I don't have time. I don't know what to say. It's easy for them. It doesn't fit with me because I'm an employee. It's easy to create those excuses, but at the end of the day, they're all excuses. They're all excuses for you not embracing your willingness to fail. So it doesn't matter. So hands up in here if you're an employee rather than a business owner. Okay? Cool. So guess what? Are you telling me that building your own personal brand, refining your message, really understanding your own value, are you telling me that that's not going to make a difference to anything in your life? Because even if you never use it to generate revenue or clients or customers or anything, I promise you, it's going to change you, just like it's changed me. Every time I get up and I do this, every time I film a new video, every time I write a new blog piece, I get that little bit closer. But I can also tell you now that the bits that I've written and filmed, then there's plenty of them that I never put out into the world, yeah, they help. But they do not help you iterate in here as fast. It's just one of those things. And I see it over and over and over. So what's been my story of failure? You know, I had some interesting feedback from multiple sources over the last year, just as I'm developing, sharing my own style and my own message. And basically along the lines of, look, some of the time when you're talking, you talk about, you know, you've done this, you've done that, you've achieved this, you sold your business for that. You don't need to. And it was interesting because I take a step back and I look at it and I know that whenever I talk about myself and what I've done and achieved, I'm really only saying, hell, if I can do it, you can. But I took that on board because there was also an element of wanting something for myself. Not much, but a small one. Worrying about whether some of you would decide to become clients or wondering whether, you know, enough people would buy tickets to Advisor Edge. The more you do that, the more it just holds you back from actually capturing your resonance. So I've decided to take on board that advice right now in this moment, but also ignore it. And I've taken it on board, but I'm ignoring it because what I'm going to do instead is just share some of my failures. So what is the social advisor? Well, how did it come about? Well, it came about really because I see you. I see what the profession is doing. And when I say profession, I mean the profession of advice. I'm not talking about whether you're an accountant, right? And I can actually point at Alex because he's been both, or a financial advisor and is both. I'm not talking about whether you're, you know, a finance broker. I'm not talking about whether you help people with their branding, where's Peter? you're advisors. And I saw you stagnating. And when I mean stagnating, I mean not helping enough people to change their lives. And the reason you're not is because you're not letting your worth out into the world. You're trying to convince people how good what you do is and how much it helps them, instead of actually being yourself, instead of actually being yourself at scale. And the thing is, the key to giving advice is about trust, because people don't take your advice unless they trust you. And you're not going to get trust by telling people how good you are or what you do or what your accomplishments are. And despite the fact that there's all of these people in the room, it was because of the bits where I was being myself, not the bits where I was saying what I'd done and what I accomplished and what we did and how we achieved it and what we did for people. The reason the social advisor has been able to bring you here is not because of our list of accomplishments and what we help you do. It's because of what we believe. And what I believe is that you can be more, you can be better, but there's only one way you can do it, and that's to fail. And that's to fail in public. So what I'm really asking you is for courage. What I'm really saying to you is you are worth more than you know. What I'm really saying to myself is you're worth more than you know. You don't have to worry about what's on your slides. Just get up and speak to people from the heart. Tell them why you're doing it. And it's interesting because over the evolution of Advisor Edge events, what we've tried to do and what we've been working on figuring out is how to get you to do what works. And it's interesting because we never had a problem creating resonance. I unlocked that years ago. And so a lot of the things we're talking about over the next 3 days, I haven't been doing in the last 18 months to 2 years. All right? That's why there's only 300-ish of you in this room. When we started out at 200, because I haven't been putting what I believe into the world. And the reason for that is because we didn't have the model. We had to figure out how to get you guys to do what we're telling you. And it's been an interesting journey because we started out, we created this awesome online platform. And some of you, hands up if you started out with the online platform. There's a few in the room. Right. And a few of those hands that went up actually went through it all and did it. So Paul Wright, I know he's been through all of the stuff we started out with. Where's Brett Evans? And so you had your hand up as well. Dave Ray was one of those guys as well. Josh down the back, I remember, sorry for calling you out, mate. I remember Josh sending me a message going, yeah, I'm just not gonna go on and watch that stuff. And then we tried workshops and coaching one-on-one. And you know what? All of them have worked to a point. But all of them have also been a failure. And there's no way that we could iterate and get to a place where we believe that we have the right mix to get you there without screwing it up and without failing. But guess what? The people that have come on board and worked with us, you've had results, right? It's worked. But you haven't done everything, and you could have. And that's what we've been figuring out. And for me, I feel really good because I think we've worked that out and we've solved it. And you know what's exciting about that? I get to actually go about putting myself out into the world again. I get to actually stand up and say what I believe. And some of those things might shake the tree because accountants as a profession are asleep. Financial advisors, mortgage brokers, worrying about all of this stuff that isn't about how you're giving value and serving people. You're distracted by all of this crap. Distracted by your own lack of understanding of just how valuable you are, how worthy you are as people, and you're not sharing that with the world. And if you did, everyone would have great advice. People would be coming to you. And just imagine if everyone out there had the kind of value that you give. Imagine that. How much better would the world be? Really? Not the stuff you're trying to sell them, I mean your real value. And so that's what I want to say to you. Grab it. Hold on to it. Understand it. But that's a challenge. So who in the room could put their hand on their heart and say, I know what my purpose is in life? And I mean, I know what my purpose is, not about your job, not about your value statement, what drives you as your core purpose. And I'm going to tell you what my purpose is. So you can put your hands up in a sec. Sorry, I probably called that too early. To help people, the people of the world, to be themselves. That's my purpose. Now, doing this through you is just how I'm going about bringing that about. So put your hands up if you can say with that level of deep, fundamental clarity that you know what your purpose is. Hands up. How much does it change you knowing that? It does. So part of what I'm saying to you is that even when you've got that, you still have to figure out how to communicate it and how to actually bake it into what you do. And the only way you're ever really going to do that is by doing it in public. So take a chance. Take a risk. So I think I covered this point, which is we all kind of want to jump up and celebrate the wins. So here's what you'll think you're supposed to do on social media and out there, and if you're doing an event and all those kind of things. You want to tell everyone the good stuff. You want to give them the case studies where your client saved $1 billion in tax. If it really was $1 billion, then you probably don't need any more clients, but you get the idea, right? You want to tell them how good it is, how much you know, what your experience is, how long you've been doing it for, where you specialize, all of the wins. But the thing about trust is, and this elegant simplicity, which is the word that is coined by the person I'm referring, Carl Richards, my friend, who's an advisor in the States, and if you don't know him, you should follow him at Behavior Gap, is authentic vulnerability. That's the words he used. Trust comes through authentic vulnerability. This is the shortest pathway. What that actually means is you letting people get a taste of who you are. Not what you've got to offer, not your stupid value proposition that sounds like everyone else's. Who you are. That's where trust comes from. And so we're going to go through over the next 3 days, and some of the sessions will sound a little digital marketing type process, strategy, put this out, do that. What I want to tell you, however, is if you follow the steps, right? So if you go and you set up a Twitter account, you automate your social media like we're saying, you build X amount of quotes, you do this often, you build this series, you productize your business this way, you use retargeting to get people's attention and get them to come back. You do all of that stuff, and you haven't got this, it won't work for you. Okay? It's a reason why accounting firms, financial advice, businesses, all of them, there's a reason why they don't have huge marketing budgets. They don't. Even the biggest organizations Don't spend money on marketing. I remember having this conversation with the Queensland head for PwC for Queensland. I said Queensland twice then. I was talking to him about this, and he said, you know what? It's so true. There was one year where, you know, from corporate, it was like, we're going hard. We're going out there. We're getting our brand out there. And he said, I can't remember if it was the crazy sum. It was like $2 or $3 million. And this goes back, 10 years ago. And so they ran TV ads and newspaper and radio and all of those things. And he said, guess how many leads, new clients we got from that? Paul had it right. 0. None. He said we could not track one single thing back to that. And there's a reason. Because trust is at the core of that. And if you really, really want to get your message out there and to be worthy of trust, you have to feel your own worth enough to put yourself out into the world. And I know some of you sitting there are feeling something a little unpleasant as I'm saying this. I know. I can feel it. I can see the look on some of your faces. That's normal. I promise you, it's the same feeling I have. It's the same feeling I had when I was standing down the back before I walked up here. It's the same feeling I have whenever I see a video that I've done and I'm like, oh, that's terrible. But I'm calling it out. I'm calling it out for myself and I'm calling it out for you. That is just the crap in your head. Everyone is worthy. Everyone has something valuable to say. More importantly, everyone is worthy of being themselves. And what I want to show you, and what I want to give you, is not just the inspiration, but all of the tools, the accountability, the process, whatever it is, things I've not come up with yet, to help you to be yourself, to be worthy of being yourself. And you know what? Part of the way that I'm going to do that is by changing the paradigm. How do we change the paradigm? Well, you can't just go out and decide to change the world by going head on with the things that aren't right. You have to work with it. And we live in a commercial reality. A lot of you send your kids to private schools. A lot of you have mortgages and expenses and, even worse, expectations of your success and where you should be and all of these things. So what I'm going to do is, if you come with me and if you join with our community, and I don't mean you have to do it with me. I don't mean you have to jump up and say, go to Advisor Edge next time around. I mean, if you just join the idea and you spread the message, here's what's going to change. And here's why the real social business is so exciting and important to me. Because what's going to change is this. Being yourself is the most outstanding competitive advantage you can have in business. And we are going to show you the steps and tools and process that you can outcompete if you are game enough, if you're willing enough, if you're brave enough to actually be yourself. If you can do that, we'll help you with everything else. You don't even have to do it the way we do it. You can go out and do it yourself. But if you're brave enough, it's going to work. It absolutely works. And I promise you, opportunities will come to you that you never even imagined. It will blow you away. But it never comes without the step of courage. It never comes without the willingness to actually screw it up. It never comes without the doubt. It never comes without the questioning. but you're worth doing it anyway. And this is part of my own journey. You know, over the first Advisor Edge, we focused on the process and strategy. You know, it was very, yeah, sure, we talked about philosophy a bit, but hey, I come from an advice practical background, so here's what I knew, or thought I knew. You want process, you want steps, you want action plans, you want checklists, right? You want value, this is value. So, you know, coming from a professional services business, you're busy, right? You're distracted, you got all of these things to do. If you run the business, it's even more so. You've got clients waiting, all of these urgent things. And I'm actually going to skip ahead now to this one, right? You got all of this urgent stuff. And the things that I taught people at the first Advisor Edge were actually this, the important. And so what happened when a lot of you, and a lot of the people that aren't here but came along the first time, what a lot of you did was you got back to the office, and then what happened? The same thing that normally happens when you go to a conference and you hear cool shit. Oops, I swore. Is that worse than saying Queensland twice or not? I'm not sure. So what happens is you go back. So what I thought I'd do is give you all the process, system, setup, structure, so that you could actually put it into place. But you know what actually happened? Fear got in the way. Because for you to do the things, you actually had to film the video to send to your clients. You actually had to tell a story. You actually had to put some of your heart into your LinkedIn profile summary. And so what you told yourself is that I'm too busy and oh, which way did I go? Sorry about that. Yep. I was actually aiming for this cool laser pointer, which I can use if any of you heckle me, because I can poke your eyes out from a distance. Is you got stuck in the urgent. But you didn't get stuck in the urgent because you were busy. That's just what you said. What you really did was you got stuck in the urgent because it was easier doing that than having to face some of the things I've talked to you about today. You're not going to know exactly what to say. You're going to screw it up the first time. You do a video, it's not going to be perfect. You'll stutter or whatever it is. Your first blog post is probably going to be way too long, have way too much stuff. Where's John Forward? John, you here yet? Okay, not here yet. Hope he's here for when I pick on him later. John put one out on LinkedIn. It was brilliant. And then he did a pitch at the end. And I'm like, oh, I was just about to jump on and share it everywhere, and I just couldn't do it. Right? But so what? It's brilliant. Now I can say to him, hey, just tweak this, change that. So this is how it really works, and this is my challenge to you, is to follow me. Not in the process and the steps and what I'm doing. Follow me by being brave enough. Follow me by saying, you know what? I do have enough worth. And I'm saying to you this to you, even if you are an employee within a business. Okay? This is about you and your life journey and your worth. So you can be like most people in the world and never figure it out. Always have the doubts in your head. Not know where your purpose is. Not understand where you're going. Not really. And so then you create all of these other things in your mind to comfort yourself around that. But life doesn't have to be that way. So if you're an employee and it's not even your responsibility to build a personal brand, I'm telling you, it's your responsibility to yourself. Do it. Start a blog. Tell your story. It doesn't even matter how many people read it. If it's just your friends and families, do it. And I can promise you that if you do, and it's from the heart, and you share it as part of your team and within your business, I promise you, you will contribute to the whole brand, to the whole trustability of the business that you're a part of. And even if you don't directly advise clients, even if you never plan to, by being worthy enough to put yourself out into the world, not only are you going to achieve more clarity for you, not only will you find your place easier, but you're actually going to create authentic vulnerability in the business where you work. And if you do this together as a team, the result that you can create is just something that cannot be competed with. It can't. Imagine a whole business of authenticity. Imagine a whole business where your team has found your voice, where they're willing to put themselves out there. And then imagine if you coordinate it. Imagine if you schedule it. Imagine if you keep people accountable to it. The hour or two a week that it costs you from your team doing this, if you're an employer now, I'm speaking to you, if you actually get them to do it in business hours, here's what's going to happen. You may not start getting clients walking in the door straight away. And this is what I want to tell you about the important, because this is how the important works. The important is about doing a little bit every day, consistently, regularly. So you might not get your team members putting out their own blog posts or videos or whatever it may be into the world and bringing in clients straight away. Of course you won't. You know, Seth Godin blogged every day for 2 years before he really actually got anyone reading his stuff. We had Michael Kitzes from the US last year, and he actually put the diagram up on the stage, right? And it looked like this, except what it had was my time blogging. And this was his income line. He actually mapped out his income line against the time he was blogging. And he didn't show this dip here. This dip is represented by the huge investment of time that he didn't get back. So his income's going up steadily, he's following a career path. All this time he's blogging. He did actually quit somewhere in here. Didn't get anything, so he quit early. And this is the thing I'm saying to you. Even if you get up the courage to do it, you're not going to nail it straight away. Don't expect to change the world and people to be lining up and flooding in your door straight away. You stick at it, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Whether you follow my process, my systems, the things we teach you, what Gideon tells, it doesn't. If you just stick at it, it's going to work. But here's the thing, right, with your team, as an employer. When you do it, it changes them. It's hard. They'll fight against it for all of the reasons that I've talked to you about. I've got nothing to say. Why should I be doing this? I'm not really into social media. I'm a bit of a private person. You name it. These are all things that have been said within our team, within the social advisor. But doing it is going to make them more effective professionals. Doing that is going to make them better at what they do. So there's the challenge for you. And then I'm going to take it to the next step. Because the challenge isn't just about you being brave enough to recognize your own worth and taking a chance. The challenge is that you are advisors. You help people. One of the best ways that you can help someone in their life is to understand their worth and to figure out who they are and what their purpose is and what their message is. And I can tell you now, you can't really do that unless you've done it for yourself. And the more you do it, the better advisor you will be. And that, to me, is how, together, we can have a real impact on the world. Because if you follow, if you implement, if you grab the courage, if you do what I'm telling you for long enough, this is what's going to happen. This point here will come for you. And if you can help others do it, even more importantly, if you can lead by example, I mean, we've got some of the most recognized advisors in the financial advice space now in the country. So where's David Ray? Yeah, there, we've got Dominique. So you guys have just been doing a show, investment series. You know, a lot of you are starting to build public speaking profiles and getting paid dollars to do that. Getting quoted. I read your stuff in all of the different financial press all of the time. You know, Dave, we go back to the conversation we had where we first started talking, you'd had the 360 peer review, and it was, you're just not cutting it. You know, you're just not being innovative. And now you're being asked to do TV shows and creating your own brand. People are coming to you and calling on you. And that will come for you too. It will even come for your team. And yeah, there is a risk that you help your team do this and they find out their purpose and message. And guess what? What they do when that happens, sometimes. Guess what happens? They realize that there's a parting. Right? So yeah, like anything, there's a risk that you help your team build their own brands and define the message and they go. So what? Don't put yourself first. Think about the value you're creating. Tell the story of it. So Nick, just over here, he left the Social Advisor at the end of last year, been with us for years. And yet here he is at Advisor Edge, helping us because he wants to be a part of what we're doing. It's time for him to go out and spread his story and his message. So all of this, all of what I'm telling you, takes some reaching inside. It takes a little bit of courage. But I promise it's worth it. And if you really, really, really grasp the nuances here, everything else will work. It doesn't even matter if you put all of the steps in place that we're talking about. If you just do this, and I know because I've seen professionals that they're not doing all of the other stuff. They don't have a funnel. They don't have a opt-in page. They don't have a productized package service model. They don't have any of that. They're not even talking about what they do, but they're putting themselves out into the world. And you know what? Things change. People are lining up to see them. Their business is growing phenomenally. This is the important part. This is where resonance comes from. Resonance to me, and how I define it, is about trust. It's about reach, and it's about influence. Remember this: resonance, trust, reach, and influence. You combine those three things together, and you now have a lever and a fulcrum. You also have the ability to decide how big your lever is. And what's that famous saying? If I have a fulcrum and a lever long enough, I can move the world. So if you do this, if you're willing and if you're game, guess what? All you have to do then is decide how big your impact needs to be. And then you have to start failing. And you have to do it often, and you need to do it fast. And if you're really game, you do it in public. I put this image together because when we say the word failure, it's kind of built into our psyche, right? This is the image it creates. Especially in Australia. It's interesting when you compare this US versus Australia startup environment, right? In the US, if you're an entrepreneur over there, and I know because I'm talking to people like Richard Arnold, who's our guest speaker, who works in Silicon Valley and helps startups and entrepreneurs, they want to know what you've screwed up. Because the more you've screwed up, the better the chances that you're going to succeed. And yet, here, you don't want anyone to know your business failures, do you? You don't want anyone to know that you've screwed up because you think they might not trust you. Well, how authentic is that? How vulnerable is that? And what's the shortest pathway to success and trust? Authentic vulnerability. Thank you, Carl, for helping me to define that with elegant simplicity. That's something Carl also talks about all the time, is getting your elegant simplicity. So when it comes to social media, there's all this, well, what if? So what if I say something and it upsets someone, right? And then it gets blown up in our subconscious into this is what it's going to look like. Hell, I've had some pretty interesting feedback over the last 3 years. I've had some emails of hate. I've had an online pretty racy debate with the marketing manager from a top 50 listed company. I've had people say some pretty scathing things. And I know there's a bunch of people out there that really don't like me and don't want to see what I'm trying to do. But guess what? You're all here. It's working. So what? It doesn't matter. Risk it. Because at the end of the day, people forget. And over time, you get clearer on your message, it resonates more and more of the right people. When you're yourself, you don't need to worry about business models and value propositions. The right people line up. The right people come to you. It just happens that way. They pay you the right amount. They do the things that you want. That's just how it works. You put a video out, and this is what you think it'll be. Gideon's going to talk a little bit about that one. You go, you know what? I'm going to jump up on stage and make it up from scratch, which I'm kind of not doing right now. I'm finishing with some of the things I did. But so what? Man, I've screwed some presentations up. That's part of what gave me the courage to just get up and speak from my heart. So what? Take a chance. Risk it. I actually drew this while I was preparing this presentation. And I wanted to make sure I finished with this slide, which is the real reason I was clicking through them. Your potential, fear of failure, and a life well lived. So if you want to know the ROI of building a personal brand in social media and the things I'm telling you, the real ROI of what I'm telling you is this. If you have the courage and you take action, you're going to start climbing this wall. And the more you climb it, the stronger you get, the faster you can jump over it, the more you can be willing to take a chance. It's like you start getting bionic powers. I don't know why I just thought of the Bionic Man then, but I love the noise. It's true. You can't, but it won't happen unless you actually do. So the most important thing is the doing, because every time you do, the world gets smaller, you get stronger, you get faster. But it never goes away. The doubts, the fears, the reservations, the questioning of your self-worth, it's built into our psyche. It starts from when we're born. So join me and be game enough to fail hard and fail often, and do it for the people you serve, because that's what makes it easy. Don't do it for yourself and what you're going to get. Do it for the people around you. Thank you.